Today's episode of Tactical Tuesday is going to be all about Overbet bluffing on the river. And this is one of the more common questions that I'm asked by, potential one-to-one students or people in Greatness Village. It's, when should I overbet bluff on the river? And then the opposite side of the coin is, when should I call an overbet when I have a bluff catcher, right? And I think that if you pay attention to today's episode of Tactical Tuesday, with the focus of why are we advocating for an overbet with a bluff on the river, right? When does it make sense? So that when you're in the opposite scenario where you have a bluff catcher and you face an overbet from a reg, you can ask yourself, do they have the incentive to place this overbet bluff? And so because they have the incentive, should I be bluff catching? Or is the situation not prime for an overbet bluff? So maybe they're more value heavy. So with that said, sit back, relax, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below, and enjoy the show. Welcome to today's Overbet bluffing theme, Tactical Tuesday, my most favoritist day of the week. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Mr. John Chai. How you doing, sir?
Doing good. I'm especially excited for this episode. I guess just the bluffing episodes are the ones that I like the most, but bluffing with a pair, overbet bluffing the river, those two are always going to get me extra excited.
Yes, I know. Especially the bluffing with pairs. Heaven, help me if we have to do any more bluffing with pairs episodes. Today, I don't think we have any pairs, so we're avoiding that landmine, but we are going to be placing some overbet bluffs. These are hands that have been played and submitted by the CPG Wolves. So without any further ado, let's look at the first hand. We got an ace and a 5 of different suits. So everybody folds to the button. Button opens at $25. Our wolf is playing 5-10 no limit. The small blind calls, and this is the first data point here. We have a button open, small blind call. I think that, there's two realistic options here. There's the squeeze option, and then there's the flat option. Which option do you like pre-flop, John?
I'm good with either. I mean, ace-5 suited, I would just 100% be going for the squeeze. I think ace-5 offsuit is now starting to get weak enough or far enough down in my range where I'd be okay with flatting, and also just bringing the white belt and the small blind along for the ride with us. This is going to be a hand that we would almost always have to certainly fold facing a 4-bet unless it's for some reason very, very, very small, and kind of giving up that close flop opportunity that we have right now to play in position versus the weaker player in the small blind. That would be a little bit sad. So actually leaning towards just flatting.
Well,
now that I talk about it.
Spoiler alert. The wolf in question, he's the alpha wolf. Did not go for the flat, went for the squeeze instead to 130 with ace-5 off. And believe it or not, actually gets all the things that you wanted to get anyway. The button goes ahead and folds, and the white belt that flatted in the small blind goes ahead and calls. So now
this is great.
We're just playing a bigger pot against the white belt with position. So we go to the flop heads up. Effective stacks are 1,200 or so. There's 285 in the pot. Flop is king, queen, deuce with the queen, deuce of hearts. We had the ace of hearts, 5 of clubs. So we do have the backdoor nut flush draw. Our fine feathered friend checks from the small blind, which is to be expected. I literally have no idea what their flatting range is here when they flat a button open from the small blind. I think it's one of those situations where it's pretty unproductive to try to range the flat due to just the wide variety of hands villains can flat with in this situation, and the wide variety of, white belt profiles available too. So they check. What do you like for a hero here, John? King, queen, deuce, 285 in the pot, 1234 behind.
I definitely like starting out with a c-bet here. I mean, we have overcard, backdoor nut flush draw, two backdoor straight draws. We can make Broadway. We can make a wheel with this hand. So tons of equity that we can pick up on the turn and continue barreling. It is, I agree with you that it's it's pretty unproductive to start thinking about the small blinds range once they go flat, flat, and kind of just wave the white belt, the fish flag over their heads. Like if we got to the river and they showed me king queen suited, I'd be like shrug, okay. If they showed king five offsuit, it'd be like okay. If they showed pocket sevens, none of those hands would be surprising. So yeah, I would just kind of start out with a C bet here, plan on barreling lots of turns where I pick up equity, and hopefully, I don't know, maybe even realize some folds here, but definitely realize a whole bunch of folds on later streets where we can start betting bigger.
Cool. When I first looked at this flop with the ace of hearts, five of clubs on king, queen, deuce, with the queen, deuce of hearts, I thought, wow, we don't have much. But then I heard you describe it, two straight draws and a backdoor flush draw and an overcard. I mean, holy cow, like maybe we should just check because our hand's too valuable to bet here.
You know what I want to check? I want to preserve the go back one click.
Yeah.
I just want to preserve the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stack for one extra street.
Yeah.
That's
too bad we didn't have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We were so close. So we bet.
Just needed to 3-bet to a different size.
We bet like a third, a little bit less than a third, maybe 30% ish. Our friend calls. Turn is essentially the world. We have the ace of hearts, five of clubs. The turn is a tray of hearts. So we now have a wheel with the nut flush draw, and our friend goes ahead and checks. And now you mentioned on the flop that you're planning on barreling. So I'm guessing that means you're barreling.
Yeah. Tons of hands that we can target. I mean, I don't know exactly what they would do with their mid-pocket pairs, hands like pocket, now pocket fours through jacks, assuming maybe they don't even 3-bet jacks. But those hands I think are going to be pretty hard pressed to call unless they have a heart. I think we can start folding some hands that are technically worse than ours, but would bluff us on the river. Hands like jack 9, jack 10. Then there's some that are even better than ours, right? Like ace 10, ace jack that might just fold here facing a pretty big bet. Yeah, so I think this is just the spot where this is like the turn card that I was, dreaming for. I mean, I wouldn't even need a turn card this good to keep barreling, but yeah, we just pick up so much equity here that would probably start out with a pretty big turn C bet.
So to play devil's advocate, you could also make the argument that we turn so much equity that we may need to check back to protect our equity. Whereas, if the turn is like the tray of clubs, for instance, and we just turn a gut shot, then like getting check raised all in versus the white belt wouldn't be that big of a deal just because like, oh, okay, like no big deal. We're only folding out a gut shot. But here it could get quite painful betting and then folding to a check raise all in. So that would be my argument for, checking the turn and then potentially barreling the river rather than betting the turn.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. And like something that it's like a mistake that I used to make a lot and would be really painful to make here would just be like, oh wow, you get check jammed on here after betting like half pot or 3/4 or something like that. And now you're just not getting the right price to call. You don't get to realize a whole boatload of equity. Given that we're talking about overbetting rivers, now I'm starting to think that that's maybe what the wolf did here, because it's kind of hard to overbet the river if you big bet the turn. And
I was wondering when you were going to put the puzzle pieces together there. Yeah, it doesn't really fit unless the wolf bet's really, really small on the turn, which I think maybe is an option as well, right? Like betting a third. I think if the wolf bets a third on the turn, then they're still going to realize some fold equity, and if they get check raise, it's less likely for that check raise to be all in when they bet like 70%. So like that is also a viable option here. I think there's like a bunch of viable options, but the alpha wolf goes ahead and checks behind, and the river is a tray of clubs. So final board is king of spades, queen of hearts, deuce of hearts, three of clubs. Wolf has ace high. The white belt goes ahead and checks. Now there's 453 in the pot. We have $1,150 behind. What do you think? Well, and the spoiler alert, you know what's gonna happen because of the theme of the episode. So
Yeah,
what do
I
you think
mean,
of the overbet? What size do you choose and that sort of thing?
I think the bluff sizing here, it's just like I think the bluff sizing here is just dependent on like the range that you want to target and the range that you think like you can target most efficiently, right? So like overbet here targets like a hand like queens, some sort of queen X, maybe even like weak king X that where like the kicker doesn't play anymore. If we think we can fold out a hand like king five on the river, which isn't crazy. Like our value range on the river is pretty reasonable. Like it's not crazy for us to check back hands like aces, hands like ace king, maybe even hands like top set on the turn, especially once the flush gets there. So I think we have like a pretty wide value range that we can rep on the river. And again, hands like, even hands like the one that you just showed everyone here, King Jack is just going to be in like a world of hurt facing overbet jam on the river. I think a smaller size on the river targets a slightly different range, right? Like it would be targeting like the mid pocket pair range and also hands like ace jack, ace 10. You don't need to go, medium to fold out ace jack, ace 10, but I think that's like a part of the range that gets folded out when you go like the medium size. So, yeah, I think there's arguments for both sizes here. It's just kind of like the range that, in game that you think you can target most efficiently. And yeah, going overbet here is definitely targeting these top pair board kicker type hands.
So how do you feel, for the watcher? How do you feel right now? Seeing the overbet all in with villain's cards face up, having the king jack off, so they do have top pair. Um, I'm feeling excited. I don't know if I'm excited or not. I think.
Put it in the comments whether you think this guy folds or
Yeah, but
calls it off.
before we move forward, as a matter of fact, you should just like and subscribe to the video as well. While we're here and waiting for the reveal. So Alpha Wolf decides to go ahead and rip it over 2x all in, and the white belt does fold his top pair.
Yeah.
So pretty good result when they fold the top pair, because I think that whenever they have hands like flushes, they're probably going to bet the river themselves. And so like when they check, their range is pretty capped to hands like top pair, which if the 2x is folding that out, then certainly going to be forcing them to fold more than the, required minimum, which is, like 60, close to 70%.
Yeah. I think we're a little bit helped. Like I really like the jam given the like how much we're helped by like the fact that the flush completing turn. I think the small blind is going to expect us to check so many hands that are better than king jack, right? Like again, like I said, it's not crazy to check aces, ace king, king queen, pocket kings, pocket queens on the turn once the flush gets there. So yeah, I think now thinking about that a little bit more, I'm a bigger fan of this overbet jam on the river, given like how much strong value, how much stronger than king x value we can rep on the river.
All right, there you go. Let's move on to the second hand. So Hero goes ahead and opens the 8-10 of different suits on the button. I imagine that the target here would be the big blind, who has a stack of 519.13, so 51 bigs, and is likely a white belt. So Hero opens to 3 big blinds. Villain in the big blind calls. We head to a flop. We flop an up and down straight draw, as they used to say. Jack 9-3 with the 9-3 of clubs. We have the 10 of hearts, 8 of diamonds. The white belt checks. I think this is, kind of the first piece of the puzzle. We're definitely c-betting here. What size? Or maybe you like checking.
No, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of putting money in the pot with the up and down straight draws on the flop. Yeah, I think we can go a lot of different ways with size. Nice thing is here that like I think we like just one of the things that we know is that fish just way over defend or white belts way over defend pre-flop. So automatically just off the bat, small size is going to be profitable. This Jack 9-3 two-tone board, I think traditionally is going to be a board that in the solver would prefer larger c-bet sizes, something around 50% to 75%. So I think it's sort of just up to the I mean, we're certainly not in like a solver world right now because we're playing versus a likely fish who's, you know, starting out with 50 bigs. So don't really mind what c bet size the wolf starts out with here. Would just pick a size and again probably can plan on continuing to barrel.
Yeah, so the wolf chooses the small size, a post oak bluff for those who are keeping track at home. We're gonna take it back old school now. Bets a third. Wipeout calls. Turn is the ace of hearts, and wipeout checks. So ace jack 9-3 with the 9-3 of clubs. We still have our up and down straight draw. Wipeout checks. What do you like on the overcard turn, John?
Continuing to bet. I think there's now a wider target that we can target to fold. Yeah, just it might be tough to fold out 9x on like an undercard turn or a board pairing turn, for example. But I think this is now the type of turn card where hands like 9x, 3x, and maybe even their weakest jack x starts finding a fold. So yeah, I'm just gonna continue barreling here. I'm okay.
Yeah, so Alpha Wolf bets 3/4 pot. White belt calls. River is the king of clubs. So final board is ace, king, jack, 9-3 with the king 9-3 of clubs. So River is the other up and down straight completer of queen 10 as well as the front door flush draws. So white belt checks. There's 254 in the pot. White belt has, 404 behind. And, I think that the theme of the episode kind of gives away what action the wolf is going to take. So how do you feel about the line that the wolf took as well as their decision to go ahead and put all the money in on the river?
Yeah, I think this river it might seem a little bit scary on the surface given that like, hey, like now they just have, the big blind is going to have a range that they never fold. Maybe their queen 10s get there and their flush draws now become flushes. But I think the flip side is also going to be true for us, right? Like we now have very few natural bluffs on the river now that our queen 10s get there, our flush draws get there. We basically have like, 10-8, 10-7, that type of stuff that our front door draws that bricked. So I think this card is definitely a good one to continue barreling. And I think the river size here is probably, I think the only size that I would pick here is all in given the SPR. And I think that we can just put tons of pressure on even relatively strong hands that, like some of their two pairs are essentially now the same thing as like one pair. Given the type of range that we're repping, it's either, we're sort of saying, hey, we have a flush or nothing in this spot. Don't think that we would be value betting a hand that's weaker than a flush or queen 10 for smaller than this size, or for this size. So yeah, when we go this big, I think we're repping really, really strong. I think it's tough for the big blind to find enough hands that they can defend with, let alone enough like value hands to like happily call off with, let alone like, pure bluff catchers to call with. I think like one of the nice things too, another thing that I'm thinking about is that like some of their flush draws, some of their queen 10s are going to check raise the flop, especially facing the small c bet. So there's like already some natural removal to like their strongest hands, some of their like snap calls on the river once they don't check raise the flop. So all those things put together really make me like this overbet jam here.
Very nice. Can't say that I disagree. And so for the reveal, this one's less of a sweat, I think. Villain has the queen jack. So they flop top pair. They have queen jack with the queen of clubs. And this overbet does get through probably pretty easily considering the run out.
Yeah. I guess one thing I'll say is that like while this looks like probably one of the easier folds on the river, I think like a thinking reg, for example, might use this as like one of their first bluff catchers, right? Because yeah, it's not like a great hand in the sense that it's like third pair now, but at this point, like your blockers start mattering a ton, and having the queen of clubs that blocks flushes and queen 10 is pretty meaningful here. So I mean, this is a little, I guess a little bit of extracurricular given the theme of this episode, but wouldn't be shocked to see like fish just like pure folding this hand and stronger regs finding a call with queen jack with the queen of clubs, given how important having the queen of clubs is on this specific run out.
Yeah, it's also like when you look at the board, when hero bets the turn, I mean, I guess I guess Hero could bet their like nut flush draws on the turn, considering the turn was an ace. So they do have like a pretty decent value target of all the like flop Jack X and 9X to bet the turn with like ace deuce, ace four, ace five of clubs, those type of hands. Jack X of clubs is not really betting the turn, I don't think, hardly ever. I guess Hero also has like Queen X of clubs too. So never mind. I take it back. Hero probably has a fair amount of flushes in this spot. So yeah, it is pretty nice for the big blind to block the queen high flushes and the straights. But you know what? Doesn't matter. Alpha Wolf got it through. Well done. Good mission. That's all I got for this week's episode of Tactical Tuesday.
Next week, we're going to be talking about bluffing small on the river and when to be bluffing small, kind of the exact opposite of this one. So this episode, a lot of kind of just brute forcing it through. But next episode, I'm also pretty excited to talk about having a little bit more finesse on the river when you're picking your sizes and not just saying like, hey, man, I have a flush, so you better fold everything that's not a flush.
Yeah, this week we're walking softly and carrying a big stick, and next week we're walking loudly and carrying a small stick. Is that... All right. That's all I got.
See you next week.
Don't miss out on our next great poker adventure. Hit that subscribe button and join the CPG family.
This is Tactical Tuesday on Chasing Poker Greatness with your hosts, Brad Wilson and John Chai. Coach Brad approved. Are you a lone wolf searching for the ultimate pack? The CPG Wolf program is a close-knit brotherhood hell-bent on one thing only: chasing poker greatness. Powered by bleeding-edge wolf strats and led by Coach Brad and his lieutenants, CPG Wolves are systematically prepared for almost any spot they'll encounter on the green felt. If you want to plug into an elite team and have a step-by-step game plan to realize your full poker potential, you can apply at cpgwolves.com. Space is limited, and the pack is only as strong as its weakest member. So only the hungriest, grittiest, and most driven will be accepted into the program. Applications are open at cpgwolves.com.